Chapter 271. Who said we must deal with her directly? Isn't Raven living in the same room with her? Since Raven is so close with her, let's deal with Raven. There was no training all afternoon, so Maisie stayed in her room to read books and planned for the assessments. I'll be able to apply to sit for the assessment in another 2 days. Half a month will go by in the blink of an eye. Maisie did not seem to have seen Raven for quite some time, so she put down her book when the sound of the door being pushed open came from the direction of the door. Raven. You've come back. Maisie turned around only to see Nolan closing the door, so she stood up immediately. Nolan, why are you surprised? Nolan locked the door from the inside. Maisie was afraid that Raven would come back to see the scene later. But when she was about to go and open the door, Nolan stretched out his arm, wrapped it around her waist, and carried her onto the bed. Maisie resisted. Nolan, have you lost your mind? This is a ladies' dormitory. What does this bag want? Is this all he can think of as soon as he arrives here? Nolan pinned her hands on top of her head, and his other hand caressed her from head to toe as if he was checking her body. He then said in a light tone, didn't you break into a restricted area? You're quite tough, huh? It doesn't seem like you've suffered a lot. Maisie was startled for a split second. Could it be that Sherry keeps him updated about my life here? Nolan, let go first. Maisie did not want to be seen. Especially since she did not know when Raven would come back. Nolan pinched her chin and asked her while staring into her soul, did you miss me? Maisie's eyelashes trembled, and she suddenly thought of the ring that Nolan had given to Rowena, which she was wearing the other day. She bit her lip and turned her face away forcibly. No, Nolan's eyes dimmed slightly, and his lips were tightly pursed. Is it because of the second young master of the Bouchers? Did you take a fancy to that piece of shit? What? The second young master of the Bouchers? That piece of crap? Maisie was stunned for a short while. The surprise on her face was caused by nothing more than the person's identity. Francisco, Raven said that he has a very strong family background, and everyone calls him Mr. Boucher in here, so Boucher is his last name. The second young master of the Bouchers, is it? Chapter 272. Maisie did not speak. Nolan thought of something, took the white jade ring out of his pocket, took her hand, and slowly put it on for her. I just want to give you a present today, take a look at this. Do you like? Maisie's expression changed instantly when she saw the white jade ring on her thumb. Do I like it? Hee hee. Maisie sat up, removed the ring, and smashed it on the floor. Nolan's expression instantly turned gloomy when the white jade ring shattered. He grasped her wrist. And the burning wrath at the bottom of his eyes was terrifying. Maisie Vanderbilt, don't take my indulgence for you for granted. What do you take me for? Maisie stared straight at his murderous glare with her bloodshot eyes and said with a hint of mockery. Nolan. Don't take me for a fool. Didn't you and Rowena go to the jade store just to buy this ring for her? Not only was it a present for her, but you also gave something she wore before this to me? Do you take me for a beggar and just give anything that others don't want to me? Nolan was taken aback for a while. What does she mean? Since when did this white jade ring turn into a gift from me to Rowena? And Rowena had worn this white jade ring? Nolan's dry lips slowly opened upon thinking of something. I don't want to see you now. Pick up the trash that she had worn and get out. Maisie was lying on the bed with her back facing him. But she did not know why she was feeling so upset deep down. It was as if something had accumulated at the bottom of her heart over a long time. There would have been no issue if it was not touched, but once it was stroked, it broke, and the emotions wrapped up in it gushed out all at once. I could pretend that the white jade ring did not exist, but giving me the thing that she had worn before this. Who does he take me for? An ignorant and innocent little girl? Nolan's stretched hand stopped midair. He slowly retracted it after a short pause and stood up stiffly. You can throw it away if you want to do so. I've never wanted to give this jade ring to Rowena. It's always been for you. Seeing that Maisie did not move at all, he stared at her. Have a good rest. Maisie bit her lip upon hearing the sound of someone walking away and the door closing behind her. At that moment, she clearly knew that her sentiments and even her heart had been affected by Nolan. Nolan returned to the car, and he became gradually agitated emotionally. He knew that Maisie was by no means an unreasonable woman. Since she had said something like that, it meant that something that he did not know about must have happened. He thought of something, picked up his cell phone, and made a call. Quincy. Help me visit the jade store and find out exactly when the white jade ring I bought was delivered. You're not allowed to disclose the investigation of this matter to anyone else. Rowena was included in the word anyone. After ending the call, Nolan's eyes were as cold as ice. Damn. I was really careless. It was not until 10 o'clock at night that Maisie calmed down a little bit. She put the broken jade ring on the table and recalled what Nolan had said. He didn't give the jade ring to Rowena, but I clearly saw. Forget it. Don't think about it. She put the broken jade ring in a bag. I'll get Sherry to bring it back to Nolan some other day. Maisie looked out the window. It was already so dark, and Raven still had not returned. Did something happen to her? Although she and Raven had just been great companions for the past few days, she thought she should go and look for her as her roommate. Maisie went out to find Raven. She then saw two ladies talking to each other while coming upstairs at the stairwell entrance. As soon as she heard them mentioning Raven, Maisie stood in the stairwell and blocked their way. Chapter 273. The two ladies froze on the spot. Where's Raven? Maisie stared at them with a cold gaze. One of the girls answered cautiously, earlier today. We saw that Winona and her mates took Raven away. But we don't know where they've taken her. It's Winona again. Maisie's eyes became even colder. Winona was in the dormitory with two of her friends. They treated the bullying of Raven as a joke and talked about it with gusto. The dormitory door was kicked open abruptly. And the people inside were terrified. Winona saw Maisie walking in and stood up. Hey, where are your basic courtesy? The three girls sitting on the bed were astonished. Winona, who was slapped, covered her cheeks and glanced at Maisie in disbelief. You, how dare you slap me? Maisie slapped her to the floor. Where is Raven? Seeing that she had come for Raven, Winona, who just got slapped twice, stood up from the floor. You've just beaten me, and you still want to ask for her whereabouts. I warn you. I'm not someone that you should trifle with. Winona stepped forward, wanting to fight back. Maisie cut off her slap without even blinking and backhanded her to the floor. Winona's cheeks were swollen, and tears were welling in her eyes as she pointed at Maisie. How dare you? Maisie walked to the table and picked up the steel fork. The three ladies who were sitting on the bed got up and stepped aside one after another, but Maisie only gave them a glare, walked up to Winona, pulled her up by the hem of her collar, pressed her against the bed frame, and held the fork against her neck, almost stabbing it into the area where her carotid artery was. Maisie looked indifferent but glared at her with a hint of coldness and ruthlessness. It's fun to prank on other people, isn't it? Maisie Vanderbilt, if you dare to. Maisie turned her head to look at the person who just spoke and scoffed coldly. Whether I have the guts or not depends on whether you're willing to give it a try. Anyway, I, Maisie Vanderbilt, have never been afraid of anything. It just so happens that I'm in a bad mood today, and you've managed to provoke me. So it's only natural for me to turn you into punching bags. Anyway, you're the ones who forced me into doing so. But don't worry, I'll come at all of you one by one. And I'll start with you. She clutched Winona's hand and pressed it firmly on the bed, spun the steel fork in her hand, and stabbed it down with extreme precision and speed. Aya! Winona cried out hoarsely. The three girls on the side closed their eyes in fright for fear of witnessing the bloody scene. Unexpectedly, Winona did not feel any pain. She then saw that the steel fork was stabbed into the mattress that was between her ring finger and middle finger. Her finger would have been as good as gone if there was a slight deviation. Winona's body trembled, and blood was gradually drained from her cheeks. "Oh, so you finally understand the feeling of fear. Now, this is just a lesson. I won't give you another chance if there is another offense." The moment Maisie let go of her hand and stood up straight, Winona slumped on the floor as if every single ounce of energy had been depleted. Maisie came to the public women's restroom, and sure enough, she heard Raven slamming on one of the doors feebly. Maisie walked up to the door and removed the broom from the door. Raven fell out from the inside of the toilet compartment. Maisie supported her. "Raven, I'm sorry, I'm late." After seeing Maisie, Raven cried out in grievance. Maisie saw that her clothes were still wet, so she quickly brought her out of the restroom. Back in their room, Raven changed into a set of clean clothes and sat on the bed, wrapping herself in a blanket. She had been splashed with water and had been locked in the toilet in her wet clothes for several hours, so she suffered from starvation and the chill. She was still shivering. Chapter 274. Maisie handed a mug of warm water to Raven to warm her hands. "You should be hungry. I still have instant cup noodles in my bag. You gave it to me the day before yesterday, I'll cook it for you." Raven nodded, lowered her head, and took a sip of warm water. Maisie turned her head and looked at Raven. "I'm sorry, I'm the one who got you involved." She did not expect Winona and the others would make a move on Raven. "If I didn't care so much about this matter, wouldn't Raven be locked there for one whole night?" Raven lifted the corners of her lips and forced out a smile. "I don't blame you. In fact, I'm pretty lousy myself. I've been here for 3 months, and I haven't learned anything well. How can someone like me become a secret agent?" Raven could not beat those ladies due to her poor physique, and she had been locked in the toilet and splashed with water. It was embarrassing to think about what she had gone through. Maisie soaked the instant noodles with boiling water, placed them aside, walked over to Raven, and sat down. "You've just joined the program. If you really want to become a secret agent, this training won't end in just a year or 2. You're still young, and practice makes perfect. You'll definitely succeed someday in the future." Raven looked at her and asked, "Sis Maisie, are you really only staying here for half a month?" Maisie's eyes drooped as she nodded. Raven sighed. "I finally got to know you. But you'll be leaving in half a month." Maisie was taken aback and smiled. "It's okay. You can always contact me through Sherry whenever you miss me. Maybe I'll come back to visit you." "Really?" Raven was surprised. She then thought of something and asked again, "By the way, Winona and the others said you. They said that you were sent here because you seduced men out there, although I don't quite believe it." Maisie chuckled. "I'm glad to know that you don't believe it. I've taught them a lesson about today's events." "You taught them a lesson? Then aren't you afraid of that? Will you be able to hide from a matter if you're afraid of it?" Maisie looked straight at Raven and said solemnly, "Even if you don't want to cause trouble, enduring an issue will only make it worse, especially when it's something that's being forced onto you. Don't they love to bully those who are kind?" Raven felt that what she said made some sense. "Your noodles are ready. Hurry up and go to bed after eating. You have to get up early tomorrow." Maisie finished, got up, and walked to her bed. The next day, Maisie was called to the office by the instructor, and Winona and the others were in the office too. When Winona saw Maisie, she looked away and did not dare to look directly into her eyes. She was still a little scared about what had happened last night. Maisie walked to the desk. "Sir, are you looking for me?" The instructor picked up the steel fork with a questioning tone. "Did you threaten them with this thing last night?" Maisie's eyelashes twitched. "Yes. But they're the ones who challenged my limits first." "Bullshit. The instructor slammed the steel fork on the desk. This is a training camp, not a place for you to resolve your personal grievances. You've only been here for a few days, and you dare to threaten your fellow members? Winona watched as Maisie got reprimanded and felt much more at ease. Plotting and scheming between members are forbidden in the training camp. Even a mere threat or a brawl is not allowed. Since she dared to threaten me, she'll be kicked out of the training camp. Won't she? Maisie turned and glared at Winona and the others. Hee hee, nice try. The wicked are pretending to be the victims and are trying to bring suit to the real victims? Sir, I have no personal grudge with them. I was just demanding justice on behalf of my roommate. After all, they did not only bully my roommate but also locked her in the toilet. Sir, why don't you ask them about this? One of the ladies refused to admit it. Since when did we do so? You're clearly making things up. Maisie has no evidence to prove that we're the ones who did it anyway. Chapter 275. Yes, sir, she came to us and threatened us for no reason. She even hit Winona. We obviously haven't done anything wrong. They had the number advantage and could testify for each other, so they were not afraid of Maisie's explanation. Maisie was about to say something when the instructor struck the table. Okay, there's no need for further explanation. The training camp isn't the place for you. You can pack up and leave now. Winona and the others were smug deep down. No matter how powerful she is. Isn't she still the one facing expulsion in the end? Maisie stood there and did not even budge. The instructor looked at her and was bewildered for a split second. Didn't I ask you to go? I can't go. Maisie's tone sounded calm. Besides, they're the ones who broke the rules first. Why am I the one who's being asked to leave? The instructor had never met someone as stubborn and disobedient as Maisie was, so he stood up in anger. Maisie, don't push your luck. This is a training camp. And I have the right to ask you to leave when you've broken the rules. I didn't do anything wrong, so I won't leave. Maisie stared into his gaze coldly. You, Mr. Leach, what's the matter? Why are you so furious? Sherry appeared outside of the office with a smile. The instructor frowned. Why are you here? Sherry walked up to him and patted him on the shoulder. I heard that some of our cadets broke the training camp rules. I have to at least listen to their explanations. The instructor did not say anything. In the training camp, Sherry was not only Chief Lawson's younger sister but also one of the top management of the Goldman's banquet. In other words, apart from Chief Hans and Chief Ferlin, who could tell her what to do, no one else could thus. Mr. Leach could not say anything when Sherry wanted to meddle in his affairs. Sis Sherry, Maisie used a fork as a weapon to threaten us last night, and she almost hurt Winona. Yes, Sis Sherry. We can all testify that it was Maisie who made the first move. No matter whether it was the truth or not, they would first turn all the facts upside down and inside out as long as they could get Maisie to leave the camp. Sherry pretended to be surprised and glanced at Maisie. Are they hurt? They're all fine. They can always go to the infirmary for a full body checkup if they've suffered from any injuries, Maisie replied without changing her expression. Sherry then looked at the ladies again. If you're not injured, why are you saying that she has hurt you? The situation became a little embarrassing. After all, it was true that they had not gotten hurt at all. Winona bit her lip and complained, but she indeed slapped me last night. My cheek still hurts at this very moment. And she threatened us with a fork too. Maisie was the one who started slapping people and threatening us. That is the truth already, isn't it? Is that so? Sherry asked Maisie. Maisie glanced at them. Twisting the facts isn't a difficult skill to pick up. You can consider it as a yes. They bullied my roommate, so I went to ask them for an explanation. However, they had the number advantage, so I had to grab a fork for self-defense. I'm a fragile woman who can't take a beating. I can only protect myself. She's a fragile woman who can't take a beating. The other ladies were on the verge of vomiting. She was the most vicious and ruthless person in the room last night. Does she have any misunderstanding about the word fragile? Mr. Leach. Self-defense isn't considered a fight, right? Sherry's words shocked the other girls. Did she just believe in her nonsense? The instructor was flustered. Justifiable self-defense doesn't count, Mr. Leach, she's lying. She clearly is the one who made a move on us first. Winona was not reconciled. Sherry glared at her. Then, can you show me any of your injuries? How could Winona show the injuries that she had suffered? Even if she got slapped on the face, the swelling had already subsided overnight. So what could she do? Chapter 276. Have you not picked up anything good from the training camp? Have you only learned how to slander and bully your teammates here? Mr. Leach, you can punish them accordingly. Otherwise, this will happen again in the future. When the instructor saw that Sherry had intervened in the matter, it was hard for him to say anything, so he said to them, you girls will go to the field and give me 10 laps. No matter how unwilling Winona and the others were, they could only accept their fate and leave the office furiously. Maisie followed Sherry out of the office. Thank you for helping me out. She could see that Sherry was defending her, so she was grateful to Sherry. Maisie, there's no need to be polite with me. By the way, Mr. Goldman came over yesterday afternoon. Did you tell him that you trespassed the restricted area by mistake? Sherry had wanted to report it originally, but Nolan already knew about it before she could report it. Maisie turned to look at her. Aren't you the one who told him about that? Sherry was startled and waved her hand. It's not me. I didn't do so, or at least I haven't gotten the chance to do so. You're not the one who told him either? Maisie shook her head. If Sherry didn't tell him about it, then who else would give Nolan the tip? Even my supposed affair with Francisco reached Nolan's ears. Is anyone monitoring me from the shadows? At Black Gold Group. Mr. Goldman. The employee of the jade store said that the jade ring that you bought was delivered to the reception on the 12th in the afternoon. Miss Summers was the one who went to the reception to retrieve the product for you the next morning. Nolan's eyes turned slightly cold before Quincy could finish speaking, and his lips were pressed into a stiff line. This means that the jade ring was already in Rowena's possession when I called her on the day Maisie went to the training camp. She actually had the guts to visit Z with that ring without my permission. Nolan's face gradually turned gloomy. Even if he and Rowena had known each other since they were kids, and even if she were someone his grandfather valued, he would never tolerate her. Tell Hans not to let Rowena go to the training camp again. Quincy was stunned. But your grandfather has given the order. Asking Sis Rowena to go to the training camp to oversee Ms. Vanderbilt's assessment in 2 days. Really? Nolan's eyes were cold and dimmed while a hint of coldness appeared at the corners of his lips. Maisie, who had been at the training camp for a week, came to the office to apply for the assessment in advance. The instructor looked at her in surprise. You've only been here for a week, and you already want to apply for the assessment? Yes. Maisie did not hesitate. Looking at her firm attitude, she did not seem to be joking about that. Thus, the instructor handed her the assessment registration form. Since you want to apply for assessment in advance, then read through all the rules listed above before signing this form. Maisie skimmed through the rules and the content of the assessment. Then picked up the pen and signed her name decisively before leaving. Maisie, who had just come out of the building, was frightened by Francisco's sudden appearance. She thought of something and asked sternly, "Why are you here again?" Francisco thought she was still angry about what had happened the other day and said with an aggrieved expression, "Little goddess, I already apologized to you that day. I really didn't mean it." Maisie crossed her arms. You better not come too close to me. Did Winona cause you any trouble? Francisco interrupted her and then asserted solemnly, I don't like Winona at all. She's the one who insists on pestering me. Is she causing you any trouble? I'll go find her and talk to her. He rolled up his sleeves after saying so and was about to leave. Maisie stopped him. You're a fully grown man, why would you want to get even with a woman? I'm not asking you to do so, because of her. I came to this training camp just for the assessment, and I have a week left before I leave this place. So there's no need for us to interact this much with each other. Chapter 277. Leave? A week left? Francisco was astonished. You're leaving so soon? Yes, I'm only here for half a month, and I'll leave when I get the results of the assessment in a week, Maisie replied calmly. She had never planned to interact with too many people in the training camp. She could go back home as long as she completed the task given. Francisco was a little disappointed as his little goddess was about to leave. But what to do? All he could do was to watch reluctantly as she left. Mr. Boucher, there's no need to waste your thoughts on me. Francisco, whose mind had been seen through, was a little embarrassed, but he then said seriously, how can you consider it as a waste? I'm doing so willingly. Then I'll just give it to you straight. I'm married with 3 children, so you really don't have to waste any more time and energy on me. Francisco was stunned, and it took him a moment to return to his senses and react. Why, you're kidding, right? Even if you don't want to accept me. There's no need for you to make up such a story. I'm not lying to you, and I don't need to lie to you. If you don't believe me, you can go and check it out for yourself. Given the Boucher's power and status, it won't be difficult for you to look into someone else's life. Right? Maisie said indifferently. Francisco pursed his lips tightly. He still could not believe that his little goddess was already married and had children. His heart was on the verge of shattering into millions of pieces. Maisie raised her hand and patted him on the shoulder. Kiddo. Thank you for sending me breakfast. This favor will be repaid in time. Maisie turned around and left after saying that. Francisco stayed frozen on the spot and did not react to anything around him. How could this happen? How's my little goddess married already? And who's the fucker who managed to ask for her hand? That shit sack has actually always been one step ahead of me. Francisco. Winona, who had been hiding in the shadows and heard what Maisie said to Francisco, walked up to him triumphantly and said, You heard that yourself. That woman is already married and has children, and yet she still tried to seduce you. You should be able to see the true colors of this indiscreet and promiscuous woman now, shouldn't you? Francisco, talk to me. Winona shook his arm. But Francisco flung her hands and left without even looking at her. Winona was so enraged that she trembled from head to toe. Just what kind of hallucinogen did Maisie give him? Damn it. I swear on my name that I'll definitely teach her a lesson. Isn't she going to be assessed in a week? Then I'll make sure that she fucks up in the assessment. 2 days later. Isn't Maisie the newcomer? She actually has the guts to sign up for the assessment after only joining us for 1 week. Isn't she a little too overly courageous? What do you mean by courageous? She's clearly going beyond her depth. One usually registers for the freshman's assessment 3 months into joining us, and she's taking part in the assessment after only 1 week of training. If that's not someone taking the path to her own demise, then what is? The training camps program would last for 3 months. Newcomers could apply for the assessment after 3 months of entering the training camp. They could then become official members after passing the assessment. The top management would then select a few candidates from the top-notch newcomers and arrange for them to head to Staslo's headquarters training camp. Where the candidates would undergo hell-like training programs, the candidates would either become someone prestigious and of prominent statuses like Chief Lawson or some ordinary bodyguards and be unknown for the rest of their lives. Raven accompanied Maisie to the assessment site. Most of the members at the site were members who had come to participate in the assessment, and some had come to witness the assessment. Today's assessment was a physical test, and it was also a trial in the arena. Those participating in the assessment were basically members who had trained for more than a year and had mastered the most basic fighting skills. Maisie had only been here for a week, and she was going to go against a veteran member who had more than 1 year of experience. Isn't she out of her own league? Chapter 278. Sis Maisie, do you really want to be assessed? Raven asked her softly. Don't worry, I'm confident. Maisie patted her shoulder. At that moment, the instructor and the Lawson siblings walked into the assessment hall. And, of course, Rowena was with them. Maisie looked at Rowena, and her eyes narrowed. Why is she here? Rowena sat in the seat of the deputy examiner, raised her eyebrows slightly, and gave off a faint smile when she exchanged gazes with Maisie. That's Miss Summers. She's today's deputy examiner. Miss Summers is so pretty. Most of the people in the audience were praising Rowena. She had joined the training camp very early in her life and was in the same batch as Hans and Sherry, so it was not wrong for her to be addressed as the senior of the newcomers. However, the appearance of Nolan sent a boisterous discussion around the hall at that moment. Oh my God, isn't that Mr. Goldman? Mr. Goldman actually came to the training camp in person and will even witness the assessment. Just how lucky are we? Wow. Is he Mr. Nolan of the Goldmans? Raven never dreamed that she would see the legendary Mr. Goldman at the scene. Maisie was taken aback. Why is he here? Winona saw that all the ladies around her were staring at Nolan, and her brows could not help but crease. She then said, There's no need for you girls to think about him. Mr. Goldman won't take a fancy to you, girls. Only Sis Rowena is worthy of Mr. Goldman. Deep down, Winona truly believed that Rowena was the most perfect human being, and she and Mr. Goldman were a match made in heaven. Rowena stood up in surprise when she saw Nolan. Nolan, why are you here? I don't trust you. A cold tone came out of Nolan's mouth, and it was meant to be heard by Rowena only. Hans, who was originally the examiner of the day, gave his seat to Nolan. His action shocked everyone. Mr. Goldman turns out to be the examiner? Rowena's expression changed a little because of what Nolan said just now. Damn it. Did Nolan realize something? A hint of coldness was beaming from the bottom of her eyes. Soon. The worry surging within her disappeared completely as she did not interfere in anything that had something to do with Maisie. I would never be stupid enough to do those things myself. Now she only hoped that the people arranged by Winona would not let her down. Maisie never took a glance at the stage. She really did not expect Nolan to become the examiner. Seeing the harmony that was shared between him and Rowena on stage, she pursed her scarlet lips tightly. It seems that he's chosen to trust Rowena when it comes to the affair with the ring. Participants of the assessment, I'll reiterate the rules of the assessment now. The total time for each assessment will be limited by the hourglass. If one of the parties is pushed out of the arena or is suppressed to an extent in which they are unable to move within the limited time, they will be eliminated. The instructor picked up the list. The two participants who will step up to the stage first are the instructor paused for a short while when he saw the names on the list, and in the tense atmosphere, he read the names out loud: Logan Heinrich, Maisie Vanderbilt. He was actually a little shocked that Maisie, a newcomer, was arranged to go against Logan. Not to mention that she was the first to go on stage. Everyone in the hall was shocked. Logan had been in the training camp for 2 years. In the last assessment, her performance had been the best among all the newcomers. She had to compete with a newcomer? Was someone underestimating her or overestimating Maisie too much? Nolan looked at the information on the table, and his eyebrows creased. Whose arrangement is this? Tides of cold waves could be seen surging in Rowena's eyes. Winona didn't disappoint me. Winona turned her head, looked at Maisie triumphantly, and smiled as if she had known the result long ago. "Oh, you're too unlucky to have to go against Sis Lo. Be careful, Sis Lo won't show you any mercy." Chapter 279. Maisie ignored her, took a black ring out of her pocket, put it on her index finger, turned around, and walked into the ring. Logan followed her into the ring. She was a woman that had short hair and was lean and fit. She was also glancing at Maisie disdainfully. "They're asking me to go against such a delicate woman. I'm afraid she won't be able to withstand a blow from me. However, she'll definitely lose." As the sand began to flow through the hourglass, Logan only wanted to end the fight as quickly as possible and did not seem to bother wasting time on a newcomer. She dashed toward Maisie, thinking that she could subdue her with only one move. Surprisingly, Maisie turned sideways immediately to dodge her attack, grabbed her wrist swiftly, and pulled her forward. Logan, who had underestimated her opponent, lost her balance for a split second, while Maisie took the opportunity to knock her to the ground. Everyone in the audience was stunned. This newcomer can actually fight. Logan gnashed her teeth, inserted her legs in between Maisie's, and brought her down together with herself. But when she quickly turned over and tried to suppress her, Maisie instantly broke free from her restraint. The people in the audience were filled with apprehension and were all jumpy. While on the stage, Nolan's gaze could not help but turn cold. She'll get hurt if this goes on. However, he soon discovered something, and his eyes lit up slightly. This cunning little fox is trying to buy time for herself, knowing that she will be no match for the opponent if she charges at her head-on. She's trying to delay the match to deplete her opponent's stamina. She's rather smart. Of course, she had also surprised him for good. Rowena bit her lip harshly. She did not expect this feeble-looking young lady to be able to put up a fight. No wonder she dared to accept Grandpa's challenge to join the training camp and undergo an assessment. I underestimated her. However, she's still a lost cause. The hourglass flowed smoothly and quickly. At present, Logan was completely worked up by Maisie. She rushed forward, picked Maisie up into the air by her crotch, and then threw her to the ground. When Maisie fell into the arena, she was only an inch away from disqualification. No one noticed that a corner of the paper in Nolan's hand had long been kneaded out of shape. "Sis Maisie, be careful," Raven shouted abruptly. This helped Maisie regain her senses. When she saw Logan rushing forward, she turned over to dodge. But when she was trying to get up, she was grabbed by her arm. Logan quickly clutched her shoulder with a backhand and dislocated her shoulder with every fiber of her being. The sudden, excruciating pain in the shoulder joint gave Maisie a death-like pallor. Logan sneered as if she was about to amputate her arm. But at that exact moment, Maisie's ring-wearing hand assaulted her. And the moment Logan avoided her attack, the sharp ring scratched her chin. In just a fraction of a second, Maisie adjusted her posture, rammed Logan with a sideways tackle to bring her to the ground together. And the two of them fell onto the line at the same time. The instructor stood up and whistled. The people on the stage could not believe the scene that just took place on the stage. Logan actually had fallen out of line with the newcomer. Winona did not expect Maisie to make Logan suffer that much. However, if both of them fell out of the ring at the same time, they should have both lost. Rowena looked at the instructor. Both of them went out of the line, so this match shouldn't be counted. Right? The instructor was about to say something, but Nolan's indifferent tone sounded. Why not? He stood up slowly and said, "The rule of the assessment states that elimination will take place when only one party falls out of the ring. But there's no rule that states that the result of a match will not be counted when both parties fall out of the ring at the same time." Hans nodded. Mr. Goldman is right. Generally speaking, in this case, the person who touched the line first will be eliminated. And the person who had touched the line first. Everyone had seen just now that when Maisie knocked down Logan, the ladder was crushed under her. Thus, Logan was the one who had physically touched the line first. At that moment, Logan entered the ring and stood up. I won't accept this result. She brought a sharp weapon into the fight with her and hurt me. You can't deem me a loser. Chapter 280. Logan's protest shocked everyone in the audience. She actually brought along a sharp weapon. That's considered cheating. That's right, I was just wondering how is it possible for her to win against Sislo. Winona shouted at the instructor, Maisie hurt people and cheated. This shouldn't be Sislo's loss to bear. This is obviously unfair. Yeah. Winona managed to instigate the people around her. Even though some of them did not know what had happened, they still thought that Maisie was cheating. Nolan's face was so terrifyingly gloomy that even the instructor, who was standing beside him, noticed it. When he was about to announce the result of the match, Maisie bore all the pain, gnashed her teeth, and asked, Does any of the rules of the assessment clearly say that one can't hurt their opponent? The instructor was dumbfounded and replied, The rules of the assessment didn't say, if none of the rules says so, then why should it be my fault when I've hurt her? And it's not her fault when she hurt me? Maisie's face looked pallid. Her entire arm was still feeling extremely numb up until this moment, and she could not move it at all. But you scratched me with the ring on your hand. Logan still sounded unconvinced. Maisie scoffed and looked at her. So am I not allowed to fight back when you've dislocated my whole arm? Since it's an assessment, there are always times when someone would get hurt. So if I can endure this agonizing pain, what are you doing over there? Complaining about a tiny flesh injury? Nolan's eyes looked like they were covered in a thin layer of ice. Rowena sensed the murderous aura that he was exuding and naturally did not dare to say anything else. I mustn't let Nolan realize that I have anything to do with this. But sir. She is clearly, Winona wanted to say something, but Sherry interrupted her loudly, if you lose, you lose. Both parties are hurt and are now even. Isn't it just a tiny scratch caused by a ring? A ring has never been considered a weapon. What makes you think you can one day become one of the top management with that physique and mentality of yours? Sherry's response choked Winona, and she could not say another word. She could only glare into nothingness furiously. Logan did not have anything else to say. After all, she was indeed the one who had hurt her opponent first. It was just that she did not expect to lose in such a way, so she could only blame herself for underestimating the enemy. She glared at Winona when she stepped down from the arena. If Winona hadn't told me that the newcomer was a piece of cake to deal with, I wouldn't have suffered such an embarrassing defeat. Winona dragged her back, wanting to explain something to her, but was flung away by Logan. Maisie saw this scene between Winona and Logan. And she knew why she had arranged to go against Logan. Sis Maisie, is your arm all right? Raven supported her as she slowly stepped off the stage. Maisie frowned, and her pale face gave off a smile. I'm fine, although she had noticed a scorching gaze coming from above the stage. Maisie never looked in that direction. She only asked Raven to bring her to the infirmary. The doctor relocated Maisie's shoulder for her as she gnashed her teeth and endured the pain throughout the whole process. Raven, who was watching from the side, could almost feel the pain in her shoulder. Logan was really merciless. After the dislocated joint was relocated, the doctor left the infirmary after a few words of advice. Only then did Raven come up to her. Sis Maisie, this assessment match was too unfair for you. They actually matched you up with Logan. Even members who have stayed and practiced here for half a year dare not go up against Logan in the ring. Maisie's eyes drooped slightly. It's okay. Anyway, it's over now. No matter who I'm matched with, I mustn't lose by any means. At this time, Sherry appeared outside the infirmary with a smile. About that, Mr. Goldman wants to see you.